Alright, now that we've got this bear thing, now what will you do with it? Now that you have something done, you want to show somebody, but you want to show them an actual render of it rather than just this 3D preview. Up at the top here, we've got 4 buttons. This first one will open a render view. This one will actually render the current frame. This one will give you an IPR render, which is basically like a preview render. And this last one shows your render settings. So I'm going to go into my perspective view, and you have to line this up however you want to see him. So if I want my render to look like this up from the bottom of his chin, I have to line it up that way. I prefer to get him at like a 3/4 angle. You have to kind of think like a producer, like a director for this, especially when you start actually getting into animation. But line it up in the camera how you want to see the render, and then click this second button here. Looks like a white clapboard. So from this screen, I can look at it and see some of my render settings. I know that it's rendering to 640 by 480. 640 by 480 pixels. If you want it bigger, we can change that, and it's rendering from the perspective camera. Took a second to render. I only rendered 1 frame, and we used the Maya software. Okay, that's all well and good, but is any of it going to help you? Absolutely. Go ahead and close that. Go back up to the top here, and we'll look at our render settings. Okay, so click on this 4th button here. Now, couple of things on the common tab. If you can set up prefixing for saving images and lots of fun stuff. Really, the ones that are going to be most important to you are image format. You can change this for when you render, what format it saves your object as, or your image as. What camera you render. Typically you want to leave this on perspective, unless you create your own camera, because these 3 are all 2-dimensional and you'll just see the side of the object. And the image size. If you're working on something that's going to be high res or high resolution, you definitely want to set it to something larger than 640 by 480, just to give you a lot of color information to work with. So I'm actually going to put it to full 1024, just so it's larger. Now bear in mind, the larger it is, the longer it will take to render. Now go ahead, go up to the top here, click on Maya software, and you can see quality. You can pick these and it will change a bunch of presets. So if I go to production quality, you can see it turns on highest quality, edge anti-aliasing, turns on some shading and all kinds of other fun stuff. So for now, just turn on production quality and put your size at full 1024. You should be able to leave the rest as is. Now click close, and then we'll go ahead and click that render again. You can see it's much larger. It's a bit smoother looking. So you can see that now I have a bigger picture, so if I have to zoom in for whatever reason, it's not as bad as it would be before. Now, when you click that render, you may not have a black background. You may have a white background, or a blue background, or a neon vomit green background. Go ahead and close your render, and in the perspective view, in the top of this window, you're going to want to click View. Okay, and go down to Select Camera. Now this isn't something that I do very often. I just leave mine set to black because it bothers me the least. Make sure your attribute editor is open when you go to View and select Camera. It should automatically open, but if not, it's this first button up in the top right corner. Okay, or you can hit Control A on the keyboard or Command A on the Mac. you're going to want to scroll down to where it says environment and click the little down arrow to open that up. And you'll recognize this from like when you apply materials, it's the same thing. You can adjust and make it whatever color you want. So you can go ahead, hit accept. Now you don't see any change in this window, but when I click that render current frame button at the top, now he renders onto a very, very violently loud red color. Wow. I'm going to go ahead and change that back because no, just no. And that's about it for this lesson, just a little bit of rendering. In the future, when we get into animation, I'll show you how to render more than one frame and all that lovely, lovely stuff. But for now, just, pan the guy around, render him, see how you like it. When you get here, if you do like it, you can go up to File in your render view, Save Image. It will pop up with this Save box. Click wherever it is that you want to save it. In the drop-down box, you can change it to a PSD or you can change it to a JPEG. I'll typically change it to a Photoshop file if I need to edit it a little bit more, just to touch it up, make it look more prettyful. Give it a file name, save it, click save, and that's about it. Then you have this as a JPEG or as a Photoshop file, what have you. So yeah, in the next lesson we'll get into making a little bit more complex scenes and editing these basic shapes as a little bit more in depth and make them a little more interesting so you can make things other than just spheres. So we will see you eventually.